My name is Rudy Barlow. I'm joined by Javi Guerra Lamos for Football España. I wanted to get the insight of a true Betico after their sort of fantastic season. They're points of securing fifth place in La Liga. But of course, the big news this season was that they won the Copa del Rey under Manuel Pellegrini. Javi, welcome. How are you doing? How's things?
Everything is fine. Thanks. Thank you very much for having me, first of all. And glad to be here. Glad to talk about Betis and football in general. It's always a pleasure.
So just to explain, some of you I'd be surprised if some of you knew who Javi was, unless you are a Betis fan and you know him from sort of going to the games and everything. But Javi's sort of we go a little way back, but he's a true sort of Betico. He is, I think, a lot of us who obviously observe and cover Spanish football, we have people that we trust in terms of certain clubs. And then when you have an issue or where you have something you don't understand, you go to them, you send them a message and say, Javi, can you explain this for me? So that's who Javi is to me. He's also a good friend. We keep in touch. And he was the head of the Peña Bética Escocesa, which is based in Edinburgh, which is where I'm from. And that's kind of where we met. Tell me a little bit about yourself first, Javi. Just kind of introduce yourself to the listeners. Like, where exactly are you from? Where in Seville are you from?
I'm not from the city of Seville. I'm from a town that's approximately half an hour drive away from Seville. It's called La Puebla del Rio. It's probably not familiar to many of the English speakers that will be listening to this interview, but in Spain, it's, even though it's a very small town, but it has a reputation for those who like bullfighting, because there's a very famous and successful bullfighter that was born in this town.
No, definitely. I think I agree that I think they are an attractive club, and I think it's something that, I mean, even though they are having success now, but they are an attractive club to sort of get involved with because of that community sense. Because, as you say, they are so numerous, despite not having that success. I think that breeds kind of an atmosphere and a community feel around the club that maybe some of the other larger clubs, they obviously have lots of fans, but it's based on a sort of degree of success, whereas Betis is almost the opposite. Man que pierda is the thing that always gets spoken about. And you said sort of, obviously you have that connection to sort of people that identify with the club that aren't from it. The Peña Bética Escocesa, tell me what it's like kind of having a group of Beticos who, I think most of them were from Andalusia, but a group of Beticos who are sort of supporting Betis from so far away from Seville. Like, what is that like, having sort of a little community, a pocket away from Seville where you can sort of revel in your Betisismo as it is?
That is something I would like to start by sort of mentioning what kind of a fan I am, because I'm perhaps not a conventional fan, Betis fan, because, for example, I never held a season ticket in my life. Okay. And I've probably been to the stadium, to the Betis ground, Benito Villamarín, probably been there 10 or 15 times maximum in my whole life. Okay. So watching games on TV, which has been more than 90% of the games that I've watched for Betis, it's nothing new to me. It's nothing new to me. So the thing of being abroad and still following Betis, in that sense, it was not new to me. It was not new to me. It's different, obviously, to live abroad, because the atmosphere is not the same, especially when there's an important game coming up, a derby or a cup final.
Yeah.
It's different, of course, when you're abroad, because the intensity, the levels of intensity are different. You can't smell it in the air that there's an important game coming. It's only inside of you, and you can share it with these people that you know in this city. But other than that, there's nothing else that indicates that there's something like that happening. So it's less intense. But on the other hand, it's very, very special. It's very special to be abroad and to meet other Beticos, either randomly, because it can happen. If you're wearing a Betis top, somebody could stop you in Edinburgh, because there's a lot of us Spaniards living in Edinburgh, for instance. And it could happen that somebody would identify the Betis badge and would, say that they're also Betis fans. It could happen. But you can also meet them in the Betis Peña. And for me, it was also quite sort of a coincidence to end up becoming a part of this Betis Peña, because when I arrived to Edinburgh in the summer of 2013, I had no idea that there was a Betis Peña in Edinburgh or anywhere. Actually, the Edinburgh Betis Peña, the Betis fan club in Edinburgh, is the first British Betis fan club ever founded. Yes, so this, just for you have to imagine this really, because the Betis Peña in Edinburgh was founded in 2010, the year 2010. So that's almost 12 years now, because it was in December, so almost 12 years. The Betis Peña in Edinburgh was founded while the club was in second division. Okay, Betis was in second division. What does that mean? What does that mean? Especially for people who were living abroad, that you couldn't ask the bartender in a pub to put the Betis game for you. It's already difficult to convince a bartender to put the Betis game for you, because probably other people want to watch any Premier League game, or maximum Real Madrid, Barcelona. It would make more sense. There would be more people interested. But Betis is not one of these teams, and being in second division made it even. It was impossible to watch a game. But that's the essence of Betis. No matter how low we are, there's always a spark of Betisismo. There's always something. So that I think that is very. It was a coincidence, obviously, but I think it's very representative of what it means to be Betico. Going back to the thing, having this Betis Peña, it makes a very big difference, really, to be able to watch a game with other fellow Betis fans, and especially to be able to share the happiness, and also the pain of being a Betis fan, because for good or for bad, we're more prepared to suffer. I know that many fans of many other teams could say the same. In our case, it's why is it hard? Why is it hard to be a Betis, and also great to be a Betis fan? Because Betis is, we're not a small team. We're not a modest team. It's not a coincidence that Betis is in the first division. It's our historical natural place. But on the other hand, we're not the kind of team that usually wins a lot of trophies. We've won this past Copa del Rey that we just won, was the fourth official title that Betis has. So we're one of the historical teams, obviously, without which La Liga wouldn't be La Liga. But on the other hand, we're not one of the top teams. So we're more used to, that sense of greatness, and that sense of being an important club makes it also difficult to not be competitive with a regularity that we would be satisfied.
But like, as you say, sort of coming from that second division, it's created. Obviously, there's a kind of in the 50s when Betis went down to kind of like the third divisions, and that's where they kind of built up their massive fan support. I wonder if there was kind of a similar thing in the second division, where the sort of core of Betis united again to get them out of that kind of situation. Obviously, then they come up and they do really well. They have Quique, Setién, kind of most recently before Pellegrini really took them to some heights. They were playing some really good football. You went to see Betis in Milan, I believe. You were at the San Siro for that kind of famous Europa League night. What was that kind of like?
Well, that was I believe one of my first trips.
Away trips.
Betis
away
trips,
days.
you could say. Away days, you say?
That's the UK term. Is the away day.
Away day. Yes, that was. It was not the first, because I was in other for the friendly, for the preseason. There were some games that were played in the UK, as a matter of fact, in Bournemouth and Cardiff. So I was there too, but these were friendly games. They were not official games. Mm-hmm. This was the first official game that I attended for Betis away. And well, imagine, it's San Siro. It's one of the greatest places for a football fan. A stadium, a club that has won 7 Champions Leagues. That was it was we wouldn't, we couldn't expect to win that game the way that we did it. Even though Betis, as you said, with Quique Setién, was able to perform, to play very good football at times, but I certainly didn't conceive. I didn't conceive the idea of being able to play such a great game and being so superior to Milan, which perhaps we weren't talking about the best Milan ever, but still in their stadium. And we could have won. We won. It was a 2-1 win, but we could have perfectly scored double the goals that we scored. We just didn't. But it was an amazing game, and to be able to share that with, because we traveled, me and other Edinburgh Peña members. It was so much fun, and we all stayed in the same place. We booked an Airbnb, and that was just so much fun. The whole experience, traveling together, being together in a different city, and all for the purpose of watching Betis. That's one of the most incredible things. Having belonged to this Betis Peña, because I can say I met very good people that I consider friends nowadays, and who knows if I would have met many of these people in other circumstances. We speak Spanish. We have that in common. We're from Spain. Many of us from Seville, and we have that in common. But who knows if we would have developed this friendship in any other circumstance?
And that's the thing that's so good about, being into football and supporting football, is it does bring you sort of extra stuff. How many times in your life are you kind of going to travel to Milan with a group of, I don't know how many of you there were in total, but random guys from around your area, or people that you sort of live near, to Milan on a sort of weekday, and then spend a couple of days in Italy, and all for the purpose of one kind of shared passion. There's very few experiences, hobbies, whatever you want to call it, that unite people like that.
But I do have to say that the Betis fans are, and I consider myself a Betis fan, but the actual Betis fan, the people that they go, they have their season ticket, and they normally travel, and with the away days, they go to other stadiums in Spain, and they see the team. They do live for the team. These people are really resilient. I was surprised. I was even tired myself, because I felt obliged to cheer as well in Milan, for example. But I'm not sure if you saw the highlights or if you saw the game at all, but in the stadium, you could only hear the Betis fans. You couldn't hear anything else. It was a whole part of the stadium, like say 1/4 of the stadium, with all of us, and you could only hear the Betis fans, because it was a non-stop cheering. But that all comes from far behind. You mentioned it. Manque pierda. What does this mean? This means, well, the whole lemma, the whole motto is "Viva el Betis, manque pierda," which we could translate as "Long live Betis, even if we lose." That all comes from far behind, what you mentioned, the years in the 3rd division. Real Betis is the only team in Spain that has been the champion of the 3 main divisions, 3rd, 2nd, and 1st division, because Betis has a league title. Ancient, but it is an official league title. And obviously I wasn't alive in the 1940s, but I can't believe how it must have been to have the precedent of having won the league trophy in 1935, and in 1942 being relegated to the 2nd division, and then in 47, I think, dropping down to the 3rd division, and surviving for 7 years straight in the 3rd division. The stories that people have from their grandparents, how they went to these towns in Seville to play against, Betis playing versus any village in Seville. The fans would travel on a donkey to go. People would just travel with their whole means, with the means that they managed to have, whatever they had. On a donkey is probably a one-day trip to go to this place, and that's indeed, as you said before, that is the inception of the Betis soul, of what Betis represents. That it's, in the end, winning is not the most important thing. It is not. It's really not. And that's, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say it's interesting you kind of say that, because so much of football is obviously focused on winning, and yeah, especially with the big clubs, I wonder, and I sometimes feel like big clubs are more discontented than say like a Real Betis, who's very sure of their identity. They know exactly what they're about, and when they do have that success, they cherish it. It's more important to them, but they exist without it. Whereas some of the big clubs, I find it one of the most fascinating debates in football as to whether it's better to support like a larger club, which isn't as successful, or sort of a large club that has lots of trophies to its name, but the demands are always to win competitions. Moving on to sort of the final, obviously you now live in Poland, and you traveled all the way from Poland, fortunately not by donkey, all the way to La Cartuja. What was it like, firstly, sort of traveling there? What was it like, the kind of build up and getting ready, going to the airport with this sort of pilgrimage on your mind, and knowing that you could go and there was a possibility that Betis might lose?
Yes, there's always that possibility, right? I mean, I think most of us felt like this was our year, because yes, we were playing the final, but this all came from a little behind, like previous. It was a work. It was a prize that was derived from a lot of great games. If you look at the whole Copa del Rey that Betis has played this year, it's been magnificent, really. I mean, obviously there have been better games than others. We did struggle to beat Talavera de la Reina, I think it was, which is I think a third tier team. I think they play in first Primera Ref. Talavera was a very tough game. Even the Sevilla game, I think that was the inflection point. Definitely, that was the inflection point. Already in the round of 16, and we had to play Sevilla. We didn't have very good precedents, because in the last years, every time we played Sevilla in an eliminatory, like in an eliminatory, we lost. And some of these games were really tough. You might remember the Europa League, Euro Derby in 2014. I was already in Edinburgh. This subject could be a whole different podcast, a whole different interview, completely. But that was the inflection point. Yeah, that the Betis was very superior to Sevilla, even though Sevilla is a great team. But this was a great game played by Betis, and well, it was poetic justice that we finally were able to defeat them, no matter what the circumstances were. Which there was extra
controversies.
Yeah, there was controversies. Going back to what you were asking me, obviously there were possibilities of losing the game, because Valencia is a good team, despite they're not at their best, historically speaking. But Valencia is a great team, and it could have happened in one game. Anything can happen. But we sort of felt that the odds were on our favor. They were in our favor this year. It was just meant to be. It was for me. I promise you, really, when I was in the stadium and like Cartuja already watching the game, there were phases in the game where Valencia was superior, and they could have scored a goal. They could have won the game in the 90 minutes. But I was just thinking, it just doesn't match. It doesn't match at all. It didn't match the whole circumstances. Joaquin is 40 years old. It's a last chance to do something historical, really historical, because qualifying for the Europa League or the Champions League is fantastic. It's a great success for Betis, but winning an official title is something that, it's something that you don't do every year at all. And it's statistics. It's prestige. Exactly. It stays forever. Nobody will ever deny that Betis won the Copa del Rey in 2022. It was a third. And whatever comes after that is going to add to what happened then. So, I mean, who counts the qualifications to the Champions League? You can count that, but it's not the same as winning an official title. It's the winning. It's the maximum expression. It's the maximum to what you can aspire to win a title. So